you absolutely need to go out and make those relationships with the small local banks. Introduce yourself. What type of lending products do you offer? Do you even lend on products like this? Because here's the thing, you're just going in there and you just want to find out what they lend on, what they like to lend on, what is their preferred product, what type of LTV terms do they offer, what is their interest rate? Are they doing variable interest rates? Are they doing fixed? Or ask him, what does the perfect borrower look like to you? Like, what do you need from me to be a customer to you? And they'll tell you flat out, oh, you got to have a 620 credit score. We need 2 years tax returns. Look, we get the game. We understand if you're an investor, we can overlook some things, with depreciation and all that, but they'll tell you exactly how your liquidity status needs to look. And things like that in order to become a customer with them.
You're listening to the Guerrilla State Investing Podcast. We're not here to bruise your bananas with guru sales pitches, overrated fluff, or any other kind of monkey business. We simply provide the ground-pounding truth about what it takes to be successful in real estate.
All right, Guerrillas, excited to have you guys on today. We have a special guest all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana. His name is Josh Wilson. Before I get to introducing you guys to Josh, I want to go ahead and say if you take anything away from the show, if you get any value from Josh, you get any value from me, you got to pay the tax. And the simple tax is go on to Facebook, join our Facebook group From Middle Class to Millionaire. Be glad to have you so you can learn and spread the knowledge of how to get out of the middle class in the world of real estate. So today, Josh Wilson from New Orleans, he's a college dropout. And you would think that would be a negative thing, but Josh has built a portfolio himself of $15 million in real estate using the BRRRR strategy. He's also the CEO and founder of the BRRRR Bootcamp, where you can find that at BRRRRbootcamp.com. Josh, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing today?
And thanks so much for having me.
All right, let's get straight to it. Josh, what have you done to get your ass out of the middle class?
Honestly, for me, it's been investing in real estate. So investing, in addition to real estate, investing in assets that produce cash flow. So my biggest thing is that, look, when I'm sleeping at night, or if I'm sick and I gotta take a day off or two, I don't want my income to stop. So I tried to get away from transactional income to passive income to where I didn't have to work for it. So I've invested in multiple businesses, real estate as well. Anything that can produce cash flow is what I invest in. And that's essentially how I got myself out of the middle class per se, and into the passive class.
So what were you doing and when did you start investing?
Yeah, so I always say, I was a terrible employee. Every single job that I've ever been at, I've been fired, or I quit, or I gave up, or whatever it was. And it was just, honestly, because I hated working for somebody else. I always had this entrepreneurial drive inside of me. And so, yeah, man, I was doing, believe it or not, I was a radio DJ back in the day. I did disc jockey work. I emceed weddings. Kind of went into that. I actually built up a nice company when it came to wedding production. I was really young and had a knack for going out there, listening to music and making people smile and dance and get down and all that good stuff. And I ended up selling that company to one of my employees, and I think that also kind of kickstarted my entrepreneurial journey. And so I got a little cash from that, and then took that. Hurricane Katrina came. Everybody knows that story. Hurricane Katrina came, knocked me on my ass. I didn't know what I was going to do. Still bouncing around from job to job. And then finally, about 2007 or so, right before the market crashed, I met my wife and I told her, I said, hey, look, we need to do something else. Like, this is just not working, And so started watching HGTV, seeing all these people flipping houses and all this crap, and decided to start getting into that game. So I worked for a property manager for about a year and decided to do it for myself. And bam, the rest is history. Started managing our own properties, managing other people's properties, making income, and then started buying properties, one by one, doing the 20 and 30% down. And that took a little bit longer that way. But then that kind of got my feet wet into the real estate journey of the BRRRR method. And then once I learned the BRRRR method, my portfolio just exploded.
So did you Was it good timing for you to get into it at 2007, or was it bad timing for you to get into it 2007?
So most people would look at it as it was bad timing, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it was good timing in the sense that I learned so much during that period. Talk about like way to earn your stripes. I mean, we go into this and we're starting a new company. We're taking on all these properties, and all of a sudden, I'm just watching people go bankrupt. I'm watching people, get foreclosed on left and right. We're losing management clients like left and right. And I kind of studied that. I was like, looking, what are they doing wrong? What did they do wrong? And one of the things that I found was that most of these folks that have, got foreclosed on or lost their homes, is that they were just over leveraged. So back then, in 2007 or before that, 2005 and 4 and all that, I mean, the banks were giving out 100 to 110% of the LTV. I mean, today we look at that and we're like 110% of the LTV. There's no freaking way, So those guys were over leveraged. So when the market pulled back 30, 40%, they're sitting at a property that's probably at a, they're way over leveraged, and they don't, they're way underwater. So anyway, so that's what I found at that time. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. And that's, I like the saying, if you ain't earning, you better be learning. Right. So
that's right.
2008 was the time to learn. And then from there, market dips down, pretty much foreclosures all over the place. Did you start getting into foreclosures and fix and flips from there?
We did. We started acquiring properties. I got a great story about this, and I still kick myself in the ass for this. But every day we were getting new deals. We actually partnered with a company. They were out of Texas at the time. They were called Econo Homes, and they were doing they were going back buying all these REOs from the banks, and then literally they were just funneling the deals to us. Like every day we get a new deal, and we would buy it. We'd buy it. But one thing we noticed was that all of a sudden the prices started creeping up, like ever so slightly every couple of deals. Like we'd get a little bump in pricing, and we would pay, like, say for instance, this is a shit you not, we'd buy a duplex for 30 grand on a street now that it's worth like 300K today. Yeah. We'd buy it for 30 grand. And, next month later, they would be like, okay, the duplex around the corner here is 45 grand. And so we would still pay it, but we got to a point where, it started inching up, and we would just say, screw it, we're not buying that. That's ridiculous. The market's crap, blah, blah, blah. Well, we bought this one property, and it's a very prominent area in New Orleans, in uptown New Orleans. And we got an offer of like $45,000 to buy this duplex. And now today, the same duplex on that street is trading for $750,000. And we were bitching about a $45,000 price tag back in 2008. And it just goes to show you the mindset. So now, if we ever have a pullback in the market, I'm not gonna second guess it. I'm just gonna buy it and I'll wait.
Absolutely. So, right? Buy low, sell high, right? So yes. I would call you kind of like a BRRRR badass, right? Like that is what you do is the buy.
Ninja.
Yeah. The BRRRR ninja. There you go. I like that better. So walk us through what BRRRR is, and then what is like your, I don't know, unfair advantage on how you knock out the BRRRR method so well.
Yeah. So the BRRRR process, for people that don't know, it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. So it's a process. And what we do is we go out, we buy undervalued properties. We push the values up via repairs and or rent increases. And then from there, we rehab the properties, push up the value, then we rent the property, push the rent up a little bit. And then we refinance the property because we bought an undervalued asset and pushed the value up so that we could get our cash out. Now, I will tell you, not every single time we get all of our cash out. There will be occasional couple times here and there throughout the year where we have issues and the appraisal doesn't come back where we need it to be. But at the end of the day, majority of the time, 95% of the time, we're pulling all of our cash out and then repeating the process, which is my favorite part, and doing it all over again. So I would say the unfair advantage that we have, that I teach and I push and preach this, is vertical integration. That's something that a lot of people don't really talk about. But vertical integration is so powerful. So what I mean by vertical integration is you're having a bunch of companies that are all kind of linear, and they all feed off of one, asset. So like our real estate feeds multiple different companies. So we'll buy an asset. We have a property management company. We'll have a rehab company. We have a maintenance company. We have a sales brokerage and acquisitions department, landscaping company. All those things will feed off those other companies. And so when you're vertically integrated, you accomplish a few things. Number one, you accomplish efficiencies in your scale. So you're able to control the process. And so what I mean by that is an example would be like, say, for instance, for rehabs, we're able to control how much we spend on rehabs, and we're also able to control the efficiency when it comes to that. So when we put it on the schedule, we're not waiting for another contractor to say, yeah, I can start you in 2 months. We can get right to it and move one of our projects around and get that one done first because we have our own rehab company. We have our own teams built in place. So that's just an example of the vertical integration, why it's so powerful. But that is the number one thing that I preach. And that's a huge unfair advantage, I believe, that we have versus other guys that are mom and pop doing the BRRRR process.
Okay, and I'm going to be honest. I've heard the term vertical integration lately, and it made me want to puke because it seems like I'm like, what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
But so where do you start? Do you start with the real estate business and then say, okay, now I need to add a construction company. Okay, now I've got some properties, need to add a lawn care company. Like, kind of, what was your process on vertically integrated?
Yeah, they all kind of it wasn't so much that, like, you got a step-by-step plan on how to do it. It's more of, hey, look, implement one, try it out, and start feeding that company, your deals. And so, like, a great thing would be if you have a little small single family portfolio, you could go to the marketplace and actually acquire, if you wanted to, you can go and acquire a business for little to no money down. That's already got the systems, already got customers, already has cash flow, and take it over, and then use that to use that business, to manage and take care of your properties. And so that's essentially what we did. And so you can do the exact same thing.
So I'm guessing in order to do that, you have to have a pretty focused market because, a lot of people invest nationwide, and it's not very easy to have a management company that can go across state lines, or a lawn care company wouldn't make sense. So is all of your concentration of homes in the New Orleans area?
Yeah, so that's the power of the BRRRR process. So the power of the BRRRR process for us is we do 60-mile radius of the city of New Orleans. So the way the BRRRR process can be so powerful is that you literally go into one market and you smother that market. And so that's what we do. We smother the market with our homes, with our management companies, with our acquisitions and all that. We're just all in on that one market. So we could do the same thing. Like, say, for instance, we go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we could actually do the same exact thing. Go in there, start, a management company, start an acquisitions department, and then start acquiring homes, get our lenders in place and just start doing the BRRRR process all over again. And then you build up that market, the same way we did here in New Orleans.
Which asset class are you focused on? Is it single family, multifamily?
Yep. So our buy box is 1 to 20 units. And so it's just, it's worked very well for us, only because I feel like we're set up vertically for it. We're not really built for, 100 plus unit or an 80 unit complex. The way our management structure is that we're built for 1 to 20 units. We have the software, we have the technology, the system, the automations, all in play, to handle that. So yeah, 1 to 20 units is our buy box.
Okay. And when you're looking at a property, say it's a single family property, and you say, I want to do a BRRRR strategy on this, I'm guessing you have to take what your after repair value would be in that market. And how do you calculate backwards from there what your purchase price would be, the renovation expenses? Like, how do you evaluate if it's a good BRRRR?
Yeah. So we have look, man, I've been doing this now for so long. Like, literally, I could underwrite a single family deal on the back of a napkin at a bar. Like, I could do it in probably 5 minutes. But it's just because, another mentor of mine, Brandon Dawson, always says experience builds confidence. And it's just, as you do it so much, you just get so confident in the process. And so that's where I am. Believe it or not, you probably wouldn't believe this or not, but there are deals. I have many deals, probably in the last 3 years or so. I haven't even been on the street. I haven't even been in the property, and we own these deals and we manage them, and I've never seen them. Like, I've literally only seen them in pictures, and I've never been on the street. I don't even know the tenants. I don't know anything more than just like, hey, what's our KPIs? What are we running at? And that's really been great for us because it allows us to scale. Now, that being said, back to your original question, our method or our mathematical equation is extremely simple. We have ARV times 75% minus repairs equals our offer. And that is how I do my deals. And I literally spit out multiple offers a day in that same exact scenario. Now, I spit out multiple offers. I don't get them all, but I do also will get them back at some point. So what I mean by that is if you're putting out enough offers every single day, eventually some of those offers are going to come back. And they're going to come back because either the buyer's financing fell through, or they found something on inspection that they just didn't like, or they couldn't just come to the table. Their private lender pulled out. I mean, there's 1,000 different things that happens, and we've bought many deals just from other people not being able to perform. And so it's crucial to make offers and make them often.
Where are you finding the properties to send out your offers to? Are they on the MLS? Do you have a list system?
Yeah.
How are you doing that?
We do a few things. So MLS is number one, wholesalers number two. We do direct mail, that's number three. And then number four, we also do Facebook marketing as well. So those are like the top, literally, those are the four things that we do to get our deals. And we have a little bit of when it comes to direct mail, we use a company called REI Direct Mail. Corey Meeker, he's awesome over there. He does this new mailer for us. It's like a fake check, and we've had a really good response rate with it. And that's gotten a ton of deals for us.
And of those four pillars, which ones produce the most, not the most offers, but which one produced the most return on your time?
Yeah, time, I would say wholesalers, because they're already doing the work, and it's just easy. They send me the deal, I underwrite it in a couple of minutes, and I say, yeah, I'll take it. And they're like, really? Yeah, I'll do it. And they're like, okay, just send me the paperwork and sign it. Like a great example of this. My wife and I were on our way last Thanksgiving to Asheville, North Carolina. We're flying with our kids for Thanksgiving, and we're going to spend the week there. And we're on the plane there, and all of a sudden I get a deal from a wholesaler. I'm up there, connected to Wi-Fi, and I get a deal from a wholesaler. I'm looking at the video, the walkthrough, and my wife's sitting next to me, and I said, hey, I was like, can you run the comps real quick on this, address? She's like, okay. She ran the comps, gave me the ARV. I was like, okay, well, the ARV looks good. She ran the rental comps. I'm like, okay, the rental comps look good. So I made my offer to the guy literally up in the air, and he said, okay, sounds great. He was like, no, we got a deal. He sends me the document via DocuSign. I sign a DocuSign. As soon as I land, I get on the phone, call my bank. The bank wires the money over to the title company for the earnest money deposit, and then we closed 2 weeks when I got back. And I've never seen the property. We've renovated it, everything. And but it again, it just goes back to showing you the experience, build confidence. You do it over, you do it enough, it just becomes numbers at some point,
And I think it's an important thing because you called it your buy box, right? And you also have very strict criteria that you stick to. And that's the focus that I think it takes to be able to make those decisions very quickly, because 60-mile radius, and you've been doing this since 2007 in New Orleans. Like you said, doesn't matter what street it's on. The neighborhood it's in. Which areas are trending, which areas are performing well. You've probably done enough of these deals to be able to make a decision before you even run the numbers. You probably know if this is even worth looking at or if it's not worth looking at. And that right there, knowing your market. For our team, we were looking when we first got started out. We were looking like 5 or 6 different markets, huge markets. And what we were finding is that by the time we were able to actually analyze the market and the neighborhood, we'd get back to an LOI and they'd be like, oh, it's already gone by some local guy who's like, I don't need all this time to make a decision. I can make a decision while I'm flying on the airplane connected to not that great Wi-Fi.
That's it.
I would say that is definitely your competitive advantage because you've got your systems dialed into a specific asset class, 1 to 20 units in 60 miles around New Orleans, and it's got to be 75% of the ARV. That's awesome. And now,
one thing I was going to add too is that, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about inspections and all that, and they were just saying, yeah, man, I mean, you don't do inspections. Like, how do you buy these properties like without knowing what you're buying? And again, it just goes back to the experience, like you're just saying, like the areas, the streets, the neighborhoods, the houses, and at the end of the day, it's just an additional repair. So as long as the house is not falling down, I can figure out a way to handle it because we have in-house teams. So if we have a little, a sewer pipe problem, no problem. We have those teams available. We kind of have an idea of how much that exposure is going to be. So we're not fully exposed, So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, my next question was going to be why is it 75% of the ARV? What's the math behind that?
Yeah, that's just so two things for us. That is, our community banks will go up to 80% LTV, and then we have a national lender that'll go to 75% LTV. So we kind of just like to stay under that 75% LTV, or at or under that 75% LTV. So occasionally when we get that bottom price, that offer, we'll probably sometimes discount that even a little further down, just as our first initial offer. And then, hey, if we get it, great. If not, we're up against that 75%. We don't deliver that. So
okay, and then you said so you take your ARV, multiply it by 75%. So that says exactly how you can get your cash back at sale, just your cash back. Probably not looking to make a huge profit on refi. You want your cash back so you can redeploy that into the next one. But the minus repairs part is that. Do you send that property over to your construction company and say, hey, what do you think repairs would be? That they have to do a site visit, or you just kind of know what?
No. So we have a calculator. We have a spreadsheet that we use. And so we plug in square footage, we plug in bathrooms, kitchens, and we plug that into the calculator, and it spits out a renovation estimate for us. So it takes us about a couple of minutes. I can generally just off the square footage, if the property is in the condition that we like it to be in, I already have an idea of how much it's going to cost me to do what we call the JW special. And so we go in there and we do the JW special and do the renovation. So
now with your renovations, have you dialed in? I mean, are you looking at the neighborhood and saying, I'm going to renovate to what's appropriate? Or do you guys have like a preferred list of materials that you use in every one of your homes?
Yeah, man, we have what's called our rehab in a box. So we literally have a spreadsheet. My project manager knows like the exact materials we use on every single project. We had a bus tour we did about a month and a half ago. We brought a bunch of students down and was showing them houses, and they were all like, Josh, all your houses look the same. And I'm like, exactly. That's the reason behind that is because it's a process, it's a scalable process. So when my project manager goes to make the order for that rehab, there's no questions about what light fixtures we're going to use or what paint color we're going to paint the walls. It's the same shit as it was yesterday, So, and it just allows us to scale.
Okay. And so you've been doing this for quite a long time. And recently we've had COVID, which basically messed up all of the distribution processes and all of your contracting prices. Labor prices went up, lumber prices went up, material prices went up. What did you do to adapt to that?
Yeah, look, it definitely went up. On the pricing side, labor side, we paid a little bit more. Nothing crazy. Again, we have in-house teams, so it wasn't that bad. But as far as just trying to adapt to that, we kind of went with the punches. And unfortunately, when those things happen, the cost of the asset goes up, and then in addition to that, the cost of the rent has to go up. And so we've seen, price increases on rent because of those, price increases that we're getting. So it has to get passed on to the consumer at some point, and it has for us. And so while, yes, it has, the prices have gone up, we've been able to absorb that by increasing rents. And then also our LTV, our asset values are going up as well. So not really that big of a deal.
Okay. And so how many units total has you and your company burned through? Like, what's it take to get to your level of knowledge? And when did you feel like that you hit kind of that hockey stick growth? Because I'm guessing along the way, you didn't just understand all this stuff right from out the gate, right? So no. So like I learned real estate as an operator first. So I was a property manager when I first got started. So I got paid as a W-2 employee to basically manage other people's property.
I managed those assets and learned how to follow evictions, how to paint properties, what a make ready was, all those different things that your traditional investor that's just getting started probably wouldn't have a clue. And so I highly recommend that anybody out there that's looking to do real estate or looking to BRRRR and get into that style of portfolio is definitely get one property, learn the operations of that property and master it so that you can take that and continue to replicate it down the line. That's the one thing I believe that helped me out tremendously is that where other people were, when COVID hit, right? A prime example, when COVID hit, you had all these people that were saying they couldn't pay rent. I remember very vividly the couple of days before we had the lockdown, I was laying in bed with my wife and I told her, I was like, babe, I was like, look, we can go 6-8 months, but I was like, after that, if we have no rent coming in, I was like, I don't know what we're going to do. And so we had enough reserves to get us through, that period of time, but you don't plan for 12 months of no income, that's just not feasible, so I was freaking out, needless to say, even though I had reserves, I was still freaking out. And so I woke up the next day and it was just like, it was like a thing, we'd wake up and we'd just talk about it because like I had to, the stress level was so high. And so we talked about it and I would start to see like before, it was right getting closer to the first of the month. And it was like maybe 6 days before the first of the month. And a few people started paying rent. And I was looking at her, I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm like, they're actually paying rent. I'm like, we're going into a lockdown, but they're still paying. And then like the first came and the rent still kept coming in. And it honestly, I almost wanted to cry, because I was like, oh my goodness, this storm that I've been like brewing in my head that was going to happen. And, that everybody was saying never really came to fruition. And so it was really a blessing for us. And that was the one thing that my banker, I had a lunch meeting with them like right during COVID, a couple months after. And, he told me, he said, Josh, the one reason why we still lend to you to this day is because you never called the bank one time and asked for any help. You said you are our only customer that didn't call and ask for a break on the loan or, I need an extra 30 days. You literally made sure the bank was paid first. And, we really appreciate that. So now, I'm still doing millions with that bank every single year. And, that's one lesson I've learned during COVID, man, is just take care of the banks, make sure you pay your lenders and, they'll be right there beside you.
So a lot of people, when they think single family, they think fix and flip, right? Which you are doing fix and flip, but we call them the 5 generators of wealth from real estate, where you have market appreciation, forced appreciation, tax benefits, principal pay down, and then your cash flow, right? And so you've taken with the BRRRR strategy, and I've done a BRRRR, and it worked out exactly like Bigger Pockets told me that it would, right? Like that's where I learned the BRRRR strategy and did it on a 7 unit, and it worked. Like I got all my money back. Had this free 7 unit apartment complex. Now I was like, oh my God. And the thing cash flows. But you're pinging all 5 wealth generators by holding on to the property for longer than a year. Do you ever sell any of your properties when the market's high, or do you just keep them in the portfolio so they continue?
No, we have like one property right now we have on the market for sale, and it's like very rare that we'll sell one. If our equity like all of a sudden just starts like skyrocketing and we see a big gap in the equity that we have in the property versus what we owe on it, we may sell it and just dispose of the assets and take some of the equity out, because you got to remember now, when you talk about those pillars, right? We also utilize cost segregation and depreciation, so we have a lot of carry forward losses. So when we sell an asset, we're not paying capital gains. So, we don't have the 1031 or anything like that. So because we have all those carry forward losses from the depreciation. So occasionally we'll sell one, but normally we don't like to. We like to keep them in our portfolio and just let them continue to cash flow. And then like my opinion is that I'll just refi until I'm dead. I'm just going to hold on to them and let the equity, get paid down, principal get paid down. And then when I'm at a point where I want to do another refinance, I'll go and refinance. Like give you an example right now. I'm waiting today, get an email back, but we got approved last night for a 5.87% interest rate on a 30-year fixed product on my entire portfolio. And so we are like, we're going to be literally refinancing the entire portfolio into a fixed rate product, and just to give us a little peace of mind, but also we're going to have a massive jump in our cash flow at the end of the month. So we're going from a 20-year, all of our loans right now are in 20 years amortization, and we're going to be going to a 30-year fix. So we're talking, it's going to be like almost $10,000 to $15,000 a month in additional cash flow.
So you kind of skimmed over one thing that I want to bring home. You said you do your cost segregation to basically hyper depreciate your properties, and that gives you a lot of carryover losses, but you don't have to 1031. I've not heard of that. I've either heard doing cost segregation, and I've heard people talk about 1031 separately. Can you kind of break down how you're doing that and what that means?
So with 1031, obviously you're kicking the can down the road. And so for me, and then also too, with 1031, you have that pressure of like buying another asset within a certain time frame. I never want to be forced to have to go put my money to work and just put it in something because I need to. So what I do is we do cost segregation. So that allows us to depreciate the asset instead of depreciating over 27 and a half years. We're depreciating in years 1 to 5. Mostly usually years like 1 and 2, like very heavy. And so we'll depreciate the asset. And then that gives us carry forward losses because I think we're limited in the amount of losses that we can take each year. So if we sell an asset, we're in a zero tax bracket. So if you make under, and I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I want to put that disclaimer out there, but from what I've been told, I believe is that if you are under 60K or somewhere around there in that range, 60K or under of an income, you pay a 0% long-term capital gains tax. So that's kind of how we've been able to do it, is because we appreciated our property, so we have losses. So I'm, on the books, I'm looking like I don't have any income, and so that's how we're able to not have to pay those taxes on that sale.
I hate the 1031 process. I like that it's available, but I just don't understand why they do, 45 days to identify the property, 180 days to close on it. I wish I could talk to somebody at the feds and just be like, why can't I just sell a property and buy another within the same fiscal year? And that income goes towards or against my taxes. I don't understand why they do that. It's like you have to put your money into an intermediary, and that intermediary holds on to it. And if you ever touch those dollars with your bank account, you owe capital gains taxes on it.
Yeah, there's some reason why the Fed wants that. There's some gain for the Fed somewhere, somehow. I don't know what it is, but I guess I have to research it more. But I'm sure, I have a CPA friend of mine, she says that, the government will tell us what they're looking for the consumer or the entrepreneur to do more of. And the reason why they do that is because they incentivize it based off of like tax breaks and credits and things like that. So like, example, right? The bonus depreciation, we're a housing shortage in America. So that's why they're not getting rid of the bonus depreciation, because if they did that, then investors would stop buying and building. And so they know that we need to keep having more houses built and more housing here in the States. So that's why they keep that credit available. Like I remember, not getting political, but when Biden came into office, I remember that was like the biggest thing. Everybody's like, oh no, the 1031's going away and the bonus depreciation credits are going away. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, there's no way. If they make that go away, the housing crisis is going to be worse than it is now. So again, you go back to the Fed is going to pump out and give incentives to what they want the country to do.
So another question I got for you, Josh, is in a competitive lending environment, which I'm sure you've gone through, or even a competitive real estate market where it's more of a seller's market than it is a buyer's market. To strengthen up your offers, do you ever buy all cash to renovate back out after rehab is done, or do you use lending every time?
I have cash. So yeah, I use some cash. I do a mix. I have some cash in my deals, and then I also have private lenders and I have hard money lenders. So I literally do between those three. We have a few other little creative finance things that we do, but that's not the majority of our deals. The majority of our deals are cash, private money, or hard money. And so we bounce around from all those three. We'll even do like hard money with private money as down payment. or we'll do cash with hard money's down payment, or we'll just do all cash, or we'll do all private lending. So there's a variety of different things. It's just a matter of where we stand at the current time with our deal flow. We're doing anything, anywhere from 5 to 7 deals a month. So we kind of have to be a little strategic in how we do that. So.
Okay. And for somebody just getting started out, wants to do the BRRRR method, chances are they're not going to have all of these lending tools lined up this way, and their offers might not be as competitive versus a guy like you can come in and say, we'll close all cash very quickly, or we, making an all cash offer with a short close, and you don't even have to look at the property because you know what the price is. What advice would you give to somebody just starting out at BRRRR on like where to go? Where do you find the properties? And how do you get going on step one?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the first thing I would do is go onto the MLS or go and reach out to wholesalers. MLS actually still has deals out there. It's just that people are afraid of getting rejections. And so if you go to the MLS and you find fixer uppers on the MLS and make offers that fit your buy box, you'll get deals. I mean, it's proven. But the problem is that most people don't want to waste the time because they feel like, oh, it's just going to get rejected. The market's too high, 1,000 different excuses, So, look, back in 2008, when 2008 happened, there were plenty of deals, right? But nobody was lending. Here we are now in 2022. There's plenty of lenders, but there's no deal. So in every market cycle, you're going to have one or the other. So you just got to figure out how to pivot and make one or the other work. So my suggestion would be is just to get out there and start making offers. The more offers you make, the more deals you'll eventually get. It's going to take work. It's not easy, but building wealth and creating wealth is not easy itself. Otherwise, everybody and their mama would be doing it.
And whenever I've seen, when I first got started out, whenever I wanted to do the BRRRR, there was a seasoning process that the banks wanted to see before they let me get my cash out. I think it was like they wanted me to see the property stabilize for 12 months before they let me do a cash out refi. And I'm guessing as the further you go down that route, because I've only done a BRRRR one time, and then
you're talking to the wrong banks.
Yeah. Well, what is your advice on? It sounds like you use community and local banks to make relationships with them, but that relationship is a business to business relationship, right? If it's the first time, you don't have a portfolio or a track record. What can a brand new person expect when they walk into the bank? What questions they need to ask, and what do you see as like common practice for treating a newbie?
Yeah, look, huge point you just made. You absolutely need to go out and make those relationships with the small local banks. Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Capital One, those guys aren't going to give two craps about you. So go into the small local community banks, introduce yourself like what I used to do. And look, I still to this day, I go and form new relationships with other community banks that either come into our area or, ones that I've just never, met with. And so I go in there, introduce myself, Josh Wilson. Look, I'm a real estate investor here in town. These are the types of properties that I acquire. What type of lending products do you offer? Do you even lend on products like this? Because here's the thing, is that when you go into these banks, there are going to be some banks that are going to look at you cross-eyed and they're going to be like, what the hell, 1 to 20 units? Single family, we only lend on multifamily, or we only lend on retail or commercial. And so that's fine. Every bank has got a different buy box, just like you and I do. And so once you kind of can come to grips with that and understand that, hey, look, you're going in there and interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, then it becomes a little bit easier and the stress level comes down. But you're just going in there and you just want to find out what they lend on, what they like to lend on, what is their preferred product. What type of LTV terms do they offer? What is their interest rate? Are they doing variable interest rates? Are they doing fixed? Or, what do they offer? And so, and then also too, one thing I always like to say is, ask him, what does the perfect borrower look like to you? Like, what do you need from me to be a customer to you? And they'll tell you flat out, oh, you got to have a 620 credit score. We need 2 years tax returns. Look, we get the game. We understand if you're an investor, we can overlook some things, when depreciation and all that, but they'll tell you exactly how your liquidity status needs to look and things like that in order to become a customer with them.
Yeah, and the one thing that I've seen that definitely helps is when I first got started out, I was an extremely organized person. I still have this binder called my tax binder, right? It like got this picture of this like dude on a computer crunching numbers and stuff because that's what I was when I first got started. Now I'm kind of a mess, dude. I got stuff all over the place. I had too much going on. But I remember going into a bank and having like and it was printed out at the time too. These are my last few tax returns. This is my personal financial statement, which it was just a Word doc, just explaining what I had going on. So I had a couple other businesses I was part of, but just that attention to like, even though my profile, my portfolio was nothing in real estate, showing up to the lender and having a binder and showing them what my finances were. It could have been my finances were crap, but they were like, I've never seen anybody do this before. They were like, no, it's always somebody they just like email them the documents, piecemeal together. They have to reach out to their CPA to get their tax returns, all this stuff. And that person said, you've done this for me. I'm going to get you a loan. And this was on my first, it was a $40,000 duplex. It was like very small. I could have probably qualified without doing any of that. I've since taken that concept now and made it electronic where I have like Dropbox or Google Docs. And I just have my lending folder with all like my personal financial statement. It's very well organized. And that's what helps me now when I go to a new bank. I just share that document with them. I mean, they're going to have to know who you are. They're going to run credit reports. They're going to get your social security number. I always have stuff password protected. But whenever I send that to a new bank, they are like, all right, this guy's got his stuff together and I'm going to work on, he's done all the work that like compress the timeline for me to qualify him. I'm going to go out and get him a loan. So I highly recommend doing that anytime you're going to a new bank. For those of you that are listening, is just look organized. You don't even have to be that organized. Just look organized, right? Like
just make it easy for them, make it easy for them to give you a loan, and just what you said, just by doing that, you're making it easy for them to say yes.
Absolutely, man. And then I haven't had a problem getting a loan from any of those banks since then because I've kind of kept that organized. Now, if you looked at my desk, like on the screen right now, I've got crap everywhere, dude. Like, I don't show them a picture of my desk, but whenever I actually show up to their desk, I look organized. So that's good stuff, man. Well, cool. So what happens if for you talk about your buybacks? What happens if like an amazing opportunity comes up right outside of your buy box? Do you have the discipline to say no to that, or are you looking at it because it's an opportunity?
Say no. I stick to the buy box. I've had some deals that have come up in Baton Rouge. It's just Baton Rouge is not in my buy box right now. And it's just because I got to stick to the buy box, because if I start going to buy outside of the buy box, then, you're going to start doing, it's like a wild, wild west. You're just going to start buying anything, everything that you feel like makes sense. But what makes sense for me, and the reason why we've had the success that we've had, is because we stuck to the buy box. We stay in that radius. We stay within the LTVs. We stay within our cash flow minimums and all that. So I have to say no and be disciplined when it comes to that. And
Okay. And I want to shift gears real quick and bring it back to some of the other businesses that you talked about for your vertical integration. And I just sat in a symposium with a guy named Joel Block, and he called it your revenue octopus. And it's basically just you've got all these legs out there that are bringing in revenue to your company, and it's something similar, but more on the multifamily syndication side. But for you, it seems like vertically integrated. You have a bunch of different companies that complement each other. How do you manage to get these companies up and running, the policies and procedures, and then also just the management of the different companies? How did you grow this to such a point to where now you can make a decision to buy a property on an airplane and know that you have all of the revenue generators and the efficiencies in place? How did you get to that point?
So the first thing I started doing was when I was first starting out. Believe it or not, when I was first starting out, I didn't have all the tools and the team and all the things that I have in place now. So, we used to spend vacations where I was on my cell phone, and I remember vividly with my kids, they were younger. We were in Key West or Key Largo, and we're at the beach, and I'm just sitting there like dealing with maintenance calls, I was enjoying the vacation, the freedom that I thought that I want, that I was looking for. But at the time, that wasn't really the freedom that I had envisioned. And so I just kind of stuck with it. It was the hustle and the grind of being able to have to, answer those calls and write those things and manage, our maintenance teams and our rehab projects and all that. And eventually I sat down one day and I said, you know what? I was like, I got to figure out and write down every single thing that I do every day. So that's what I started doing. I started writing down the tasks that I was manually doing that I was getting involved in. So like every time there would be a process, I was involved in that process to make it to the finish line. So I just started in taking me out of the process. Prime example, right? Maintenance calls, or even down to simple, to like phone calls in general. That was the first thing we did when we started. Was we got an answering service to manage and take all of our calls. I couldn't afford an employee, but I could afford an answering service to handle those calls. Still to this day, we have an answering service taking all of our calls for our entire company.
What's the name of that service?
Answer Connect.
Answer Connect. Okay,
Yep.
go on.
And so, little things like that, that will allow you to take yourself out of the business. So by implementing that one little strategy, that allowed me to have I set the call tree on how I wanted calls to be routed. So we got a leasing call that came in, a maintenance call that came in, a call for our sales brokerage. Didn't matter. We had a way for it to be routed to someone else to where I didn't have to get involved anymore. And so, that was huge. So we took that and then just like duplicated it multiple times. And every time I was involved in a process, I would literally come up with a solution in a system to work my way back out of it. And so, and here I am today. I'm sitting here on this podcast with you, and because we have a great team in place, and we have great outsourced partners that we use, and then the systems and the process we set up that allowed me to not have to be in the business every single day.
That's awesome. And that's a concept that I call buying back your time, right? Where, no one's going to do this for you until you have a way for them to do it. And starting out the business, it's when I remember when we first started, me and my partners first started our baseball tournament business. I took what's called in the Navy, the Standard Organizational Requirements Manual. The Navy lays it out, right? Like there's no bigger business than the military. It's the biggest employer in the United States. And they've got it dialed in onto how like you can plug and play, building up another command, building up another team, whatever. It's the Organizational Requirements Manual. And I remember taking that and applying it to our baseball tournament business, because it was the same thing. Like you have a mission, who's going to go, what are they doing? How are they getting home? What are they doing while they're there? It's like we call it the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, right? And I think that who, what, where, when, what. Yeah, I got to count it. And I took that manual and deleted everything that was like combat related. It was just general organization stuff, and built out our chain of command. Well, in the beginning, the chain of command looked a lot like my picture and our partners' pictures on every task, right? Like it was just, yep, I'm in charge of myself. Yep, I'm in charge of myself again. Yep, I'm in charge of myself again. But after doing that, we were able to identify like, okay, my picture needs to be at the top and the top only. So how am I replacing my photo with other people in these processes? And since then, like, 8 years ago now, we now have photos of different people on our chain of command. And it's an awesome thing to see, because when we first started out, we were like, God dang, dude, it's just us. How are we going to do all this? But eventually over time, you start at the bottom. These are the tasks that don't generate revenue, but are essential. So I'm going to stick to revenue generating tasks. And these are the tasks that are daily, that need to be done every day. And over time, it freed up the bandwidth and thinking space to be able to look outside your business instead of inside your business. And it sounds like you've done the same thing. Like, we need a construction company, we need a lawn care company, maybe even like pest control, whatever it is. These are the common services across the swath of our portfolio. How am I going to hire these out? How am I going to delegate these out? What is my not to do list? And built your business that way. And now you can go on vacation and people got it handled, right? So that's
and like another easy thing for people to do is like go and look at your if you have a little portfolio or a couple of rental properties, go look at your P&L statement and go look at who you're paying. And how much are you paying those people every year? And can you figure out a way? Like for us, we were paying like HVAC, like we had an HVAC company. We're paying like $250 a year. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, we should just do this in house. So that's what we did. We hired an HVAC guy, put him in house. Now we pay like 60 to 70 a year, so just, completely, again, kind of, change the mindset of looking at who you're paying and trying to figure out a way to, to bring that back home to where you keep the revenue, within your company.
That's awesome, Josh. I appreciate that, man. Well, we're going to shift gears again and start. I'm going to ask you the questions that I ask all three guests all three questions I ask every guest that comes on the show. The first one is, Josh, what is your definition of success?
Definition of success for me is obviously is freedom, man. Like, is being able to have freedom. That's the ultimate goal. And freedom for me looks like just being able to spend when I wake up in the morning, God willing, I get to choose what I put on my calendar. And so that's, to me, that's the ultimate definition of success, is basically being able to run my own day and have the freedom to, if I want tomorrow, if we want to go down to the Caribbean to go spend a week down there and take some time off, we have the freedom to do that. And that is correlates back to success. So, yeah. Awesome,
man. Appreciate that. The next question is, what was your biggest mistake and what did you learn from it?
Biggest mistake. Biggest mistake was buying real estate and waiting versus waiting to buy real estate. And so I would rather just go out and acquire it now and just hold on to it forever in perpetuity and let the real estate do its thing and manage the asset. But that was my biggest mistake early on, was just to have the analysis paralysis of looking at deals and talking myself out of every single deal versus, just saying, all this can be solved with a check, or this can be solved with a payment versus looking at it from the standpoint of, this is going to eat my lunch, or this is going to do that. And just talking myself out of every single deal. So now I don't talk myself out of deals. I try to talk myself into deals. So
I hear that, man, because I started investing in 2015 when the market was like starting to stabilize, right? It was still down, definitely down from what it is today, but starting to stabilize. And I said no to so many deals because of like $5,000 differences in what I needed, right? I had my number. Obviously, if we had a crystal ball, we wouldn't be on this podcast. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
We'd be hanging with Bezos.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like I kick myself in the butt now because I said no because of like a $5,000 difference and the seller wasn't willing to come down. And I went and looked at another property. And I bought some properties, but I could have figured it out. I could have, all right, where am I going to get this 5,000? Is it really that big? Is it really worth $5,000? And when I was in my 20s, man, $5,000 was a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
It's still a good amount of money, but that missing out on that $5,000 decision, I could have made that back in like a couple of months now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the equity that has even not considering COVID, just the real estate market growing over time, that $5,000 was like a mute.
Yeah, you made that appreciation back in like a month.
Yeah, man, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I hear you. And you'd be surprised at how many people say they didn't do enough sooner, or they didn't invest in themselves sooner. And that's usually most people's regret, is that earlier on. And then that's what it takes to get going, is a little bit of, I'm going to tip my toe in the water. If you go all in, you don't know what you're doing, then you're just rushing to failure. But I mean, once you've got it figured out and you can scale it, freaking scale it.
Yeah. And sometimes failure is not a bad thing, like sometimes failure really, can help you and propel you into the other direction that you really want to go. And failure is only just because you're trying different things and trying to figure out which one works. I still fail to this day on various things, even though we have all these systems in place, we are still pivoting and trying new things. I'm doing coaching and mentoring now. Like, I started doing that back in October, something completely different out of my wheelhouse that I've kind of, thought about doing. And, but we failed at multiple things when it came to doing that, but we're still pivoting and learning, on how we can help more people. And so it's one of those things where if you're constantly failing, you're getting closer. You're getting closer to success. So keep failing.
Do you mind if I challenge your vocabulary on that?
Oh, geez, go ahead.
No, so my dad taught me early on. He said the difference between a mistake and a failure is one you refuse to learn from, And so that's why I used to ask, what was your biggest failure? But it doesn't sound like you failed at anything. You made mistakes, you learned from them, you implemented controls to change them. And if you've learned from it, then that is just a mistake, and mistakes are okay. To me, failure would have been not believing in yourself and never getting started. Because if you're not willing to make a mistake, you're going to fail.
Yeah, giving up, right? When you hit the roadblocks and you hit the walls, and like we have, roadblocks all the time when it comes to like refinances or like trying to get some deals done. There's roadblocks all over the place. There's people always trying to just kill deals, and they don't even realize that they're doing it.
Yeah.
So we have to deal with those roadblocks, and it could be easy for me to just say, you know what, screw this. I'm not doing this deal. I don't want to do this deal. I'm always constantly trying to figure out, okay, there's a way to solve this. Like we had one of a friend of mine, same thing. He had a roadblock with some units that he was having, and he bought and kind of went all in, bought them, and all of a sudden found out he had more problems than he needed to. And, he had a little freak out moment, and I just kind of had to talk him off the ledge and say, hey, look, man, there's always a way. So it may cost you a little money, but there's always a way. And we'll get there. And sure enough, we did. And he was able to sell them and not have to lose anything. And so it worked out. But you get so distracted in the fact that you hit the roadblocks that sometimes your brain is trained to say, okay, danger zone, like, let's go away, versus like just lean head first, into it and try to figure it out,
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So the last question I ask everybody, Josh, is what really bruises your bananas about the world of real estate? What have you heard out there that you want to set the record straight on?
Oh man, if I had to go into that, I would probably say it's for the folks out there that if you go look underneath their Facebook profile and it says, real estate investor, 10,000 units owned, and yet they only own like 1 or 2% of that. One thing, I was talking with a friend of mine at a real estate event the other night I went to, and he was like, man, he goes, if you're looking at those multifamily acquisition photos, and if you see 20 people standing at the sign on the day of acquisition, they're all probably making about $100 a month off of that acquisition. And he was like, that's when and they're like, oh, we bought another 1,000 units today, but there's like 20 people at the sign, and so look, I just that just chaps my ass, I feel like there needs to be some more people need to be more forthcoming about, hey, look, yeah, I partnered with 5 or 10 other people, and we own 1,000 units together with another 100, limited partner investors, so that's, and look, I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to hate on me for that, but it just is what it is. I own 100% of my portfolio. So when I come out there and say, yeah, I own a $15 million portfolio, I own all 15 million. And so I'm very proud of that. And I think, other people should maybe say, yeah, I own $100,000 of a $10 million portfolio.
Yeah. And I think it's probably, it's truthful if they say they've got 100 units or whatever assets under management, because that is what they're doing. They're pulling together other people's money that they don't have and putting that money towards an asset class that they understand, and they're managing it, and they get a little bit of a percentage, right? But that would be almost like saying, like if you're a limited partner and you own part of Apple, like going around saying, yeah, I'm a part owner in Apple. No, you're not. You're a shareholder, right?
Right.
But if
but that's the thing though, man, is that like, I think like people get like the FOMO, like where like, if you don't know any better, right? And you go scrolling through and you're like, oh man, this guy's freaking crushing it. He just bought another 1,000 units today. You're probably thinking, holy shit, like he's like a multimillionaire. Like he's making so much passive cash flow. It's a different illusion, like, I don't know. That's just my take on it. But
no, I agree.
I get what you're saying about the assets under management.
I agree with you. And my portfolio is like a mix, because I started out doing everything myself and got up to 22 units on my own, did some joint ventures. And then if you look at like my unit count, if for people who care about unit count, it jumped from like in the 30s to 180 with like one deal. Right. And that looks good on paper. But the reality of it is of those 100 units, my ownership, and that's like 2 units. Right. So it looks, it's flashy. People really, oh man, this guy's got 187. I have access to how running 100 unit apartment complex works. I understand it. I'm able to make decisions in that space, but the reality of it is my portfolio would look more like 32 units on my own. but I'm, part owner in a couple large apartment complexes on the general partnership side. So yeah, I think people just need to be careful. As long as you understand what that means, if somebody's a syndicator, their numbers are just going to be really high on under management, but their actual ownership in it, like they own a small percentage of a watermelon versus 100% of a grape, right? So
yeah,
cool, man.
100%.
Well, Josh, if people want to learn more about you, if they want to go to the BRRRR boot camp, if they want to reach out to you, ask any questions, get to know you a little bit more, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can go to BRRRRbootcamp.com. That's BRRRR bootcamp.com, and check it out. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and believe it or not, I am on TikTok. My kids forced me on there, and so I'm doing some funny videos on there as well. So yeah, make sure to follow me and hit me up, and happy to help.
I think I actually found you on TikTok. TikTok's strong, man. I remember my daughter being like, "Oh, Facebook's for old people. TikTok's where it's at." And I downloaded TikTok, and dude, I have a saying that Instagram makes you jealous and TikTok makes you worthless. It's true. Like
I just sit there all day. Oh man, you're like neck cramps,
I pretty much replaced Netflix with TikTok now.
Touche.
Yeah. Well, Josh, awesome, man. I hope you consider me part of your network now. Definitely going to continue following you. For the people out there listening, follow Josh. What's your handles? Like Josh Wilson?
It's Real J Wilson.
The real J Wilson.
No. It's just real, just REAL J Wilson.
Real J Wilson. Awesome, guys. Give him a follow, give him a like, watch his stuff, putting out great content. Josh, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Guerrilla State Investing Podcast, where we give you the ground-pounding truth about what it takes to be successful in real estate. Learn more at realfocus.org/Guerrilla State Pod.